When George Basil Hume, the Archbishop of Westminster, Cardinal Hume, passed away, I happened to be in a room at that time with John Paul II. And I said to him, okay, you have to appoint a new Archbishop of Westminster. You actually have to appoint a new Archbishop of Birmingham. So tell me, what's the criteria? If all things being equal, what's the criteria for appointing an Archbishop? So with all of his charisma and personality, he looked at me without batting an eye and he said, well, two things. First and foremost, you have to always remain a priest. But most importantly, you have to look good on television. And that was the media pope, the mindset of John Paul II. Vincent Cardinal Nichols has been an archbishop for 15 years. He's been a bishop for 25 years. He's someone I've known for over 2 decades. He was one of the first cardinals appointed by Pope Francesco, and he now has been appointed to a number of important positions in the Vatican. He retains a number of important responsibilities, but most significantly, he is very close to the Holy Father. And this morning, he is here to deliver a very special message. Please join me in welcoming someone who has remained, in my mind, in many people's mind, first and foremost, a real, true priest. Vincent Cardinal Nichols, Archbishop of Westminster.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to convey to you a message from His Holiness Pope Francis with his prayers for today's conference. In doing so, I would like first of all to say how glad I am that the Archbishop of Canterbury is with you today, and express my gratitude to him for the excellent article which he had in yesterday's Daily Telegraph. In that article, Archbishop Justin called on the insights of Pope Benedict in putting forward the principle of gratuity in economic relations. So I rejoice in our strong and common Christian witness on these issues. As with his message to Davos a couple of years ago, Pope Francis in this message offers both support and challenge to the processes by which global capitalism reflects and re-examines itself. First of all, he speaks of you as being engaged in a noble vocation, one in which you are at the service of the human family. And then he offers some challenges. Primarily, there's the challenge of keeping the good of the human person at the center of creative endeavors, especially the persons most in need. You don't need me to say that our world today is scarred by indefensible inequalities and injustices. Our common home is disfigured. There are rooms of plenty alongside threadbare rooms of acute poverty. Systems that work for the few and not for the many require radical rethinking and a conversion of mind and heart. With our advanced knowledge about poverty, about environmental factors, comes a moral obligation and a call for an honest search for the vital actions needed to promote the integrity, the integral development of peoples across the world. And of course, these moral obligations fall particularly on those in positions of influence and power, in business and in politics, so many of whom are remarkably gathered in this room today. Secondly, in his message, Pope Francis issues a challenge of dialogue, in which he invites you as business leaders to engage with the voices of those who are not present in this room today. In asking for this engagement with local communities, he refers in his statement to his recent letter on the care of our common home. I would like just to quote the words to which in his message to you he simply refers. In his encyclical letter he writes, "It needs to be said that generally speaking, there is little in the way of clear awareness of problems which specifically affect the excluded. Yet they are the majority of the planet's population, billions of people. These days they are mentioned in international political and economic discussions, but one often has the impression that their problems are brought up as an afterthought, a question which must be added at the end out of duty in a tangential way, if not merely treated as collateral damage. This is due partly to the fact that many professionals, opinion makers, communications, media, and the centres of power, being located in affluent urban areas, are far removed from the poor, with little direct contact with their problems. They live and reason from the comfortable position of a high level of development and a quality of life well beyond the reach of the majority of the world's population. This lack of physical contact and encounter, encouraged at times by the disintegration of our cities, can lead to a numbing of conscience and to tendentious analyses which neglect parts of reality. That's the quotation to which he refers. I hope these strong words act as a spur to discussions today, a discussion fashioned around the view of your role as being one of leadership of service, not of self-reward, one that requires attentiveness not only to all involved in your enterprises, but also to the widespread cry of the poor and the destitute, which echoes throughout our world today. Thirdly, in his message, Pope Francis inevitably points to personal questions, as well as challenges concerning the technical barriers and obstacles you will be discussing today. His message implies these questions. Do we have the depth of desire for change? Do we have it in our hearts to do the right thing? Can we see ourselves from every point of view as ultimately, through our organizations and the people within them, called to a privileged stewarding of creation on behalf of all? The message of Pope Francis reads as follows. His Holiness Pope Francis was pleased to be informed of the Second International Conference on Inclusive Capitalism, and he sends cordial greetings to its civic, business, and religious leaders taking part in this important meeting. As the participants reflect on the urgent need to address the scandal of global inequality and to bring economic development and benefit to all people, His Holiness prays that they may keep the good of the human person at the center of all their discussions. In this way, as they consider the challenges and opportunities posed by current economic systems and financial practices, they will help to foster a sustainable economic growth which promotes the integral human development of all. So too, in recognizing their efforts as a service to global society, especially to the poor who are most often excluded from the benefits of economic growth and investment, a fruitful dialogue will be encouraged with local communities by listening and responding to their needs and their aspirations. With gratitude for the noble vocation which the participants exercise in the service of the human family, Pope Francis invokes upon all present the divine blessings of wisdom and strength. And this message is signed by the Cardinal Secretary of State, Cardinal Parolin. I thank you for your attention.